Hey, where did we go? Days when the rains came down in the hollow, playing a new game, laughing and running, hey, hey, skipping and jumping in the misty morning fog with our hearts that thumping and you, my bright girl. And you, my bright girl. And what
Welcome. We will get started in just a couple of minutes.
So slow, going down the old man with a transistor radio, standing in the sunlight laughing, hiding behind a rainbow's wall, slipping and sliding all along the waterfall with you, my bright girl. And you, my bright girl. Do you remember when we used to sing sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, just like that. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. So hard to find my way. Now that I'm all on my own, I saw you just the other day. Man, you have grown. Cast my memory back there, Lord. Sometimes I'm overcome thinking about making love in the green grass behind the stadium with you, my bright girl.
Welcome to the webinar. We'll get started in just a minute.
We used to sing.
All right. Well, welcome, welcome. It's Friday. And everyone's excited about that. Well, welcome to our new Spring Refresh Professional Learning Series for school counselors. My name is Tanya Bulette, and I am the counseling coordinator at the San Diego County Office of Ed. We want to welcome everyone here from San Diego. We want to welcome those that are attending from other counties. Thank you, thank you. We welcome you. We're so glad that you're here. I just want to let everyone know that this workshop will be recorded and it will be posted on the SDCOE School Counselor website. And we will be sending that link out in the chat at the end of this, as well as in a follow-up email. So if you want materials, you don't grab them here or you have to step out, just know that the entire video will be recorded. All right, well, welcome to our workshop today, which is Creative Ways to Use Social Media in School Counseling. This workshop, well, it is no secret that in times we are living, social media has become an even greater force in our everyday lives, both personally and professionally. So in this workshop, our presenters will share ways that counselors can use social media in their practice. Social media can be a great tool to discover counseling ideas, collaborate with colleagues across the nation, and a helpful way to stay in the know about the interests of your students. Furthermore, we will discuss how counselors can integrate social media when delivering counseling curriculum and connecting with students. So I met these two amazing leaders who are part of the New School Counselor Leadership Institute last year. And through meeting them, I started following them on Instagram. And I have to tell you, they have posted so many amazing videos, and I just knew that they had to share their ideas with all of you. So you've got experts here. Our first presenter, Nicole Vergara, is a school counselor, elementary school counselor at Rail Ranch Elementary School in the Murrieta Valley Unified School District. She previously served in the Oceanside Unified School District, and she had earned her MA in counseling from the University of San Diego. And then our other presenter is Andrea Rodriguez. Andrea is a second-year elementary school counselor at Reynolds and San Luis Rey Elementary Schools in the Oceanside Unified School District. She received her master's in counseling from the University of San Diego and completed her BA in psychology from UCLA. So both Andrea and Nicole, we are so glad that you are here today. I think you're gonna love this presentation. It'll be fun and interactive, so I'm gonna pass it off to you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And we just want to echo everything that Tanya had shared. We're really excited that you're here to spend your Friday morning with us. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. You all know about us. This is just a little introduction, but Tanya did a great job about sharing a little bit about us. So I'm going to go ahead and hop forward. This is kind of the adventure that we're going to be taking today. So we're going to start off with an opening activity. I'm then going to lead us through a conversation about finding inspiration from social media. We'll then talk about using what's trending and viral in your school counseling program. And then we'll start to conclude by talking about collaborating through social media, and definitely leave time at the end for any questions, comments, and answers that we can give you all.
Alrighty, hello everybody. Thank you guys for being here. We wanted to start off with a fun activity, and we titled it In the Know. So for this activity, you'll need a scratch piece of paper, maybe a pen or a pencil, or you can even open up your phone and use your notes. You're just gonna jot down some of your answers. So we're gonna be showing you some words, pictures, phrases, and you're gonna give yourself a point for every word, phrase, or picture that you are familiar with. So for example, if we showed you ASCA, most of us as school counselors are probably familiar what ASCA is. You would give yourself a point if you knew what that was. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so our first one, give yourself a point if you know what the word sus means.
Give yourself a point if you've ever heard of the game Among Us.
Number 3, give yourself a point if you can name at least 2 K-pop artists.
And give yourself a point if you know what a Visco girl is.
Give yourself a point if you can name at least 1 anime show.
And give yourself a point if you know who this is.
Next one. Give yourself a point if you know what the word noob means.
And next, give yourself a point if you know the names of at least 2 TikTok dances.
Next one. Give yourself a point if you know or use the saying, it's the blank for me.
And last one, the name Hype House or Sway Boys is familiar to you. Give yourself a point.
All right, so that was our last question. So go ahead and tally up how much you knew. And if you want to go ahead and enter in the chat your number, so I knew, you could put 1. If you knew 1, you could put 10. If you knew all 10, 5, 7, and we'll start to check. Okay, so I see a variety. I see some 2s, some 9s, some 8s. I see, does this mean we are not social media literate? No, 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 no. I see 3s and 4s. Okay, awesome. Great. Okay, let's go ahead and move on.
Okay, so I hope this activity was fun for you guys. You might have figured out that you're in the know. Maybe you knew a lot of those, but just by some of the numbers, it seems like maybe some of us maybe aren't in the know, and that's okay too. Maybe we need to brush up on some of those trends. So if you were curious on what some of those meant, the word sus actually means suspicious, and it's from a popular game, Among Us, which is kids are playing it on the phone. 2 K-pop artists are BTS and Blackpink. And then these are some of the other ones. So some TikTok dances are Renegade, Savage, Say So, and let's see, the Hype House and Sway Boys are popular groups on TikTok.
Now, the purpose of this activity, we weren't trying to make anyone feel old or like you weren't cool or anything, but rather to bring awareness to what is trending with our students right now in this day and age. So I want you to take a moment and look at these photos, or some people call them starter packs, and think back to when you were in elementary school. What was important to you? What were you super obsessed with or passionate about? I know when I was in elementary school, for me, it was the Jonas Brothers. So any mention of them, that was who I identified and like loved. And I think we can all agree that we're living in a very different era where the popular things now are things like we just saw in our activity. So learning TikTok dances, obsessing over BTS, playing Minecraft or Fortnite. Some of these things, these trends now might feel silly to us, but the reality is this is just a snapshot of some of the things our students, especially those at the elementary level, are excited about. So like I said, for me, it was Jonas Brothers, for any mention of them, and you knew I was there in that conversation. And I feel like during a time where the students are feeling disengaged, unmotivated to log into school or do their asynchronous homework, it can be helpful to tap into the things that we know bring their attention and we know that excite them. There really is no curriculum or handbook on how to be a school counselor during the times we are in now. But I think we owe it to ourselves to avoid reinventing the wheel and capitalize off the things that are working for others. Now, I don't know about you, but this year has been a lot of trial and error. Some things worked really great, some things not so great. And social media makes it really easy to share the things that do work with one another. We're relying on technology and social media so much right now that I think it can work in our favor, and it makes it very easy to collaborate with one another as we all navigate being school counselors during these challenging times. So we're first going to kick off our conversation today by talking about finding inspiration from social media. I want you to just try to retrain your thinking and really think of social media as like a form of Google. So if you have a school-wide activity, a lesson, or maybe an awareness day you are planning for, a great place to start, and a great place that we like to start is usually the search bars in like school counseling Facebook groups. One that I know Andrea and I use a lot is the Elementary School Counselor Exchange. So some things we'll do is we'll search in the search bar of something that we're looking for. So for example, if I'm looking for something related to the Great Kindness Challenge, sometimes I'll pop into the search bar of that Facebook group and just type Great Kindness Challenge and see what comes up. Once I found something that interests me, I first check to see if that counselor has already shared it or is willing to share it. And sometimes it's the case that I find something that I want to tweak or tailor a little bit to fit my school. And that brings us to step number 3 of creating your own resource. So if I need a graphic about calm down tools or SMART goals that I want to make specific to my school, add in my own images or change the language to be fitting for what is used at my school, I will typically go to Canva or Google Slides to help bring that idea to life. So here are a few examples of ways that we have kind of walked through that process. Andrea right here was able to put some really great Earth Day activity ideas and shared that with her school. I remember at the beginning of virtual learning, I was in dire need of looking for virtual games, things that I could play with my students online. And I actually found this idea on the Elementary School Counselor Exchange where a teacher or a counselor would read a statement, and if the statement applied to the students, they would turn their camera on. So if I said, turn your camera on if you're a school counselor, everybody's camera would be on. But I love that idea. I knew my students would absolutely love playing that game, but I knew I needed a visual and a catchy name to get them excited about it. So here is where I took it to Google Slides. I called the name Join the Meeting, and I created this visual for students with the rules. But again, I want to emphasize that wasn't an idea that I had already. I found this on social media and just kind of made it come to life so that it was fitting for my students. This image here on the right, when we are starting to move into our hybrid/virtual model, I really was trying to find a way for students to get excited about this new change because I knew some students were staying at home, some of them were staying at school, and I couldn't find a way to kind of describe it and get them excited about it because there were so many mixed feelings going on. So I knew something that did make my students excited was Among Us. So tying that Among Us, the Among Us references in there really helped them to get excited to see this new transition, even though it is a little bit scary, that we are all in this together. So, you know, when they saw this, they're like, oh my gosh, Miss Vergara, that's Among Us. I know what that is. And just that instant spark when they see something they recognize, it kind of changes the way they perceive things. So those are just a few examples of ways that we have walked through that process. Just as a side note, these are some platforms. If you haven't already heard of them or aren't using them, these are platforms that Andrea and I have found most useful in our practice, especially through the virtual setting. So we just wanted to bring these to your attention in case you haven't heard of them. Our top favorites for sure are Canva. We love using Canva. We use Canva for this slide deck. Two really helpful resources are Slides Go and Slide Carnival. They're free templates to make your slides, your Google PowerPoints and your Google Slides kind of come to life. So definitely check those out if you haven't heard of them. And here's a list of some other ones that you might want to maybe take a screenshot of if you want, so that you can check those out later. But here are some ways that we've used these platforms. So again, Canva, I was hoping to advertise my lunch bunches at the time. And so I used Canva to create this little Among Us flyer. This Great Kindness Challenge Spirit Week was also created on Canva. This virtual game called One Has to Go was created on Google Slides. And at the bottom right, Andrea created this really cool Padlet for her middle school transition week, where teachers could post their middle school photos for their students to see. So that is another great platform worth exploring too. Now, I know what you might be thinking. I don't have time to create my own resources. I need things that are ready to go. And I totally 100% agree with you. We barely have time to use the restroom and take lunch, let alone create new resources. However, the reality for many of us, especially those that might be newer to the profession, not every program has a budget or curriculum ready to go. So the tool of at least knowing how to create your own resources if you need can be super helpful because it allows you to tailor things specifically to your site and your school. There are so many things and ideas available out there that people are sharing through social media, and it really can be a hub for finding inspiration. So one day I was scrolling through TikTok. I came across this elementary school counselor, and I wanted to share this video with you.
My students a silly, fun strategy to help them deal with negative self-talk that I still use as a grown-up. I have all my students give their negative self-talk a name, a personality, and a silly voice. This strategy helps my students with three main things. 1, it helps them identify their negative self-talk right as it's happening. 2, it helps remind them that they are not their thoughts. And 3, it encourages them not to take their negative thoughts so seriously. I personally refer to my negative self-talk as that goober. For example, if the thought, I didn't do nearly enough today, pops into my head, I might challenge that thought by thinking, ugh, there goes that goober trying to make me feel bad about myself again. When I teach this strategy to my students, I'll often act out my own self-talk to help illustrate the idea.
Now, I love this video. I love her account overall, but the thing that I want to emphasize the most is I wasn't seeking her out. I wasn't trying to find elementary school counselors on TikTok, but we know how that algorithm can work, and sometimes it can really work in our favor. So I really encourage you, don't underestimate the ideas you can find from just scrolling. Just from scrolling randomly during my leisure time, I came across this really great idea on a way that I can now teach positive self-talk with my students. Sometimes you may come across ideas that you like, but maybe aren't fitting for a school counselor. So for example, I don't know about you, but I've come across so many great ideas that I love, but are typically meant for teachers because they cover things like math or science. If you come across an idea, an activity, or game that you like that isn't necessarily for school counselors, before you scroll past the idea, I encourage you to think to yourself, how can I turn this into something that will work in school counseling? Is there a social emotional concept you're hoping to cover? Maybe a school-wide activity or awareness day you're planning for? Sometimes not all the ideas are right there in front of us, since our profession is still growing. So this forces us to kind of have to think of ways to tailor things to our role. So here's an example of how I've kind of walked through that exact process that I just shared with you. As I was prepping for this presentation, I took a mental break and you guessed it, I started scrolling through TikTok, and I came across Miss Frazzled, who's a very, very popular kindergarten teacher on TikTok. I saw this game that she does with her class that I absolutely loved.
My most favorite game of literally all time. We can do 10 frames anytime. This game is called Magic Rocks. You are simply a rock. But when I say magic rock, turn into, you're gonna turn into whatever I say. I say magic rocks again and you go back to, ready? Magic rock. Magic rocks. Turn into a snake. Putting out fires, I'm so excited. Woof, 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 I love puppies. Woof. Flower, flower, flower thing. Magic rocks turn into kindergartners. Oh. And we're back. And we're back. Phew. I love being magical rocks, but I love being kindergartners more.
I thought that game was super cute, and that's something that easily, especially if you work with the littles, they would absolutely love. And you could definitely use that lunch bunch, that itself, that game just like that, as a lunch bunch game or an icebreaker activity. But let's try to walk through the process that I had just mentioned and take it a step further and think, how can I use this in school counseling? So here's a game that I came up with, and you could definitely use this for your next lesson or your lunch bunch. You can still call it Magic Rock, but now we're kind of twisting it and making it for school counselors. So maybe you're going over feeling identification or classroom expectations. Instead of having the kids turn from rocks into snakes, how about Magic Rock turn into the green zone? So you would see all your students ideally stay looking nice and relaxed and calm. You could do Magic Rock turn into the red zone. They could show you their red zone face. Or Magic Rock turn into a whole body listener, and you would expect them to have their eyes on you, facing the screen, body still. Or even Magic Rock, show me your favorite coping skill, and you could maybe see some students taking a deep breath, using their 5-finger breathing. Like I said earlier, it might be the case that you come across an idea you really like, and you might have to take a few extra steps to turn it into something a school counselor could use. But I think some really, really great ideas could come out of it if we kind of just pause and thought about ways that we could transform the ideas that are out there to make it fit for our profession.
Okay, so Nicole went over some really great ways that we can discover counseling ideas and touched on exciting and popular trends. So much that even as adults, we can think back and remember all the trends that we love. Like Nicole mentioned the Jonas Brothers. I was more of like a Backstreet Boy girl. So every time I still hear the Backstreet Boys or music or anything related to the Backstreet Boys, I can remember, and it puts me back into middle school. So although trends are fun and exciting, there's a really important reason why we should be striving to find topics that our students get excited about and keep them engaged. So I'm going to we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'll go over to why it's important to include some of these topics in our curriculum and some examples of how easy it could be to include trending topics into our SEL curriculum and group activities. So when talking about student engagement, I came across this quote that I wanted to share with you guys. It's by the advocates of relational cultural theory. And it states people need to be in connection in order to change, to open up, to shift, to transform, to heal, and to grow. So this reminded me just how important building relationships are with our students and understanding our students' perspectives. So I have a question for you. When we played the In the Know activity earlier, we can reflect on, are we in the know what our students are experts on? Because we can actually use a lot of our students' expertise when we're building our curriculum. We can acknowledge the things that students already know and build upon them. So elementary students have a bunch of knowledge and we can build on that. For example, they have technology skills with going on social media or playing online games, using their cell phone, iPad, and we want to really connect those skills to the SEL skills that we're trying to teach. For example, we can seek out a problem that students might deal with, maybe problem solving or relationship skills. And we can use a current problem that a student might be facing. For example, a student might be facing a problem with maybe rumors being spread on TikTok versus maybe back in our day and generation, people would pass like me notes around. So we want to use those examples. And then also we can maybe we can find some examples like if a student is having an issue with a friend, maybe they're struggling with friends talking trash on Fortnite in their headset versus, in person. So we can build on these problems that students are facing and then also use student strengths. For example, students might share that they love editing videos on TikTok. Well, we can find a strength in their technical skills, creative skills, and also if students are playing Among Us and Fortnite, maybe that's a way that they're staying connected with their peers. Another thing we can do is we can use what's relevant to our students. For example, we want to choose curriculum and topics that our students are interested in. There was a study by Kaloa et al. That studied a teacher that used rap music to teach math problems. And she chose rap music because she knew this was the music that her students identified with. And the study showed that the students showed positive energy, connectedness, and this integration of music promoted the student's self-worth. So we're going to show you some examples of how you can use popular music and media in your curriculum in just a little bit. We also want to observe the language that students are using and try to understand the new terms that they're using. For example, Nicole mentioned the word sus. It's not like we have to go around like as adults trying to like be cool or using these terms or anything like that. We just want to like understand and know the terms and observe how students are interacting with each other so that we know what's relevant to them. And we feel that when we try to do this and when we understand students' worldview, when we're thinking about students' worldview or culture, we might automatically think of maybe a student's ethnic background, their family life, their race, or their language, which are all really important to students' lives. But I think when we also discuss students' culture, we have to think and consider that they have a generational culture as well. So when we look at this through like an age lens, we might see as something like, oh, that's trendy or it's a phase. But to a young student, this is part of their generational culture and it's really important to them. So that's why when we actively try to understand a student's worldview, we're communicating to the students that we value their lives and we find them important. So here are some examples of how it's super easy to include trending and popular topics in any type of curriculum that you're doing. So these are just some examples that I pulled out for my small group activities. This is a lesson where we did zones of regulation for self-management. If you're not familiar with zones of regulation, it's using colors to identify feelings, And so what I did is I took the zones of regulation curriculum and I put it into like a Kahoot game, which was really fun. And students, if you're not familiar with Kahoot, it's basically like an online game where students enter and then they get, it's kind of like a game show. They pick the answers to a question. So I used the zones of regulation and the popular movie Inside Out to kind of connect that. So in the Kahoot game, students see a video clip of popular movies and shows, and they have to guess the zone of the character after watching the video clip. So we'll share a little bit of what that looks like. So students will enter the game just like that, and then it shows a question and then a little clip of the video.
Sorry, I don't know why the video doesn't want to play all the way through. It was just working just fine.
That's okay, Nicole. You don't have to play it all the way through. Our video is having some technical difficulties, but as you can see, baby Jack was in the red zone. So kids would choose the red zone little square. And then we even included the Inside Out characters on there as well. So it's really easy and interactive to show students curriculum like zones of regulation, but they also are practicing their social awareness, recognizing the characters' feelings and things like that. I use, because I'm at an elementary school, I use things like Harry Potter, anime, Cars, Coco, but it's really, you can tailor this to whatever grade level you're at. So you can even use this type of like different video clips for middle school or high school. Another thing, another Kahoot game that I used was for middle school transition week, which is right there on the right. And something that I did was for our fifth graders transitioning to middle school, what we did is had a whole week for them where they went and did a scavenger hunt on their middle school website. They found their middle school counselors, their mascots, sports that were played, things like that that would be helpful for them in middle school. And then on Friday, we did a Friday fun day. And so for the Kahoot for that, I included some really important facts that we wanted them to learn, like what's an elective, what are some coping skills you can use if you're stressed and things like that. But we sprinkled in some fun things like guessing logos, music, guessing their fifth grade teachers by their middle school picture, and we put a lot of music in there. I like to use a lot of music. So this generation is also really big on K-pop, so I like to use like BTS in there. I like using a lot of like YouTube and stuff, and you can find popular music and trending music when you're on TikTok or Twitter or Instagram. Shows you a lot of music that just pops up that's trending. And you can also, if you're not familiar with Kahoot, you can use Google Slides. I know Nicole uses a lot of Google Slides as well. And you could also use those for like an icebreaker activity or a lunch bunch or a small group that you do in counseling. And then for social emotional guidance lessons, it's really easy to use trending or popular topics in your SEL guidance lessons. So a lot of our students mentioned they're on YouTube, watching YouTubers and stuff like that. So I like to use a lot of music and shows to grab students' attention. For example, when we were doing our zones of regulation self-management lesson, we used a lot of different self-management techniques. And one of the slides I wanted to highlight was that one in the middle that says try it together. I used Dynamite from BTS and Can't Stop the Feeling from the movie Trolls. And we practice using the music to keep us into the green zone, which is feeling happy or calm. Another thing that's trendy is using the GIFs, which are moving pictures. You can see Sonic doing the floss, Roblox character doing the orange justice. And then another thing that I found out that was trending is on Fortnite, there was new emotes, which are those dancing characters. And it had the music to BTS Dynamite. So I included that in the lesson as well. And students really loved this slide. All of them are like, oh, Sonic. And they knew the characters and they were excited that this new trendy emote was on there as well. So it's fun to use those in there and get kids excited. You could also use other things on YouTube, like if you wanted to play calming and relaxing music to get students out of the yellow zone, which yellow zone is feeling anxious or nervous, and you want to play like relaxing or calm music. You can even use on YouTube, there's instrumental and like classical piano music for like a lot of the popular songs that are out there right now.
Andrea, we had a question in the chat.
Oh, of course.
If you were willing to share your lessons.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Me and Nicole, we always get messages on our Instagram, like, could you please share this? I shared a lot of like my, what was it? The Kahoot links and stuff where it's public and you can go in there and play the games with your kiddos if you'd like, or change it up and stuff. But yeah, we'd be happy to share. All right, and then so another thing that we like to use is popular movies. I feel like really grabs attention for students too, and I like to incorporate those in my lessons. For example, we use this Go Noodle activity for a self-management technique, which it was a really great activity. It helps students like tighten or freeze their muscles. And then we would practice relaxing and melting our muscles. And so I thought this video would be great, alone with the, it's a video, it's eye-catching. And I was doing it for K through first grade. But I was noticing when I was going into the Zooms, it was virtual at the time, I was looking around, seeing if students were participating and things like that. I noticed the first couple of times I did it with just the video, students were like off camera or they weren't participating. I was like doing it all by myself awkwardly. So I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I knew I needed a quick change, and all I did was add Olaf. Because Frozen 2 was pretty popular at that time. It had just came out. I put an Olaf on there with him melting because he also melts in the movie. And then all I did was tell students, okay, we're going to practice freezing our bodies just like Olaf and being a snowman, and we're going to melt like him too. And then just that little change, the kids loved it. They all were participating and getting up and freezing, and I would ask them, what was your favorite coping skill that we learned? And all of them were like, the freezing and melting. So little things like that can grab their attention and get them excited about things like that. Another example is using stuffed animals for breathing. So this is always great to like hug the stuffed animal and practice our breathing, watching our chest go up and down as we're breathing. So that's kind of something common we do in elementary school. But another thing we added in there to get them excited is to like wake up our bodies. We did an animal dance party. So I included, you can see right there, it's a YouTube video of Minions. And it's from the popular movie Despicable Me. So kids really loved that too. And then like I mentioned earlier, if you're teaching the zones of regulation, it's really easy to pop in those characters from that popular movie Inside Out. And this is actually a resource from my good friend, Jennifer Hatfield. She's a school counselor in Orange County. And she created this zones of regulation coping skill for each of the zones. And so kiddos really love that too. And then lastly, some of my favorite lessons are the ones that I shared right here, and we included popular topics and activities too. One of the activities we did over the, when we were virtual and the pandemic was new, we wanted to, for our relationship skills lesson, we really wanted students to communicate with each other. And so on the left, right there on the top, we included the Among Us theme into our lesson. So my good friend Jera Ramasanta, that's my colleague here in Oceanside Unified, we worked on this lesson together, and it was her idea to include this in there. So what we did is we created a taskbar, which is from the game Among Us. And we told students it's their task to have active listening with empathy, listening with respect. And then we even put the characters in there, and kids were really excited to see that. Right away, they were like, Among Us. And so it really helped make them excited about the lesson. And then they went into their breakout rooms. They discussed things like, how does it feel to be a kid during COVID-19? What do you do to stay connected with friends during distance learning and virtual learning? So the kids really loved it. And then when they went into their breakout rooms, they were really open and discussing these important topics, which could be, a little bit of sensitive topics. But I feel like showing them these things that they relate to help them open up and feel comfortable to participate. On the bottom right there, we also did a responsible decision-making lesson, where we were teaching kids how to be advocates and advocate for important topics in our world right now. And then one thing we got them to be excited, I included this slide right here, of course, BTS. And we would ask kids, like, do you know who these celebrities are? And they're like, yeah, that's Hermione from Harry Potter, Selena Gomez, or LeBron James, and BTS. So they got really excited about that. And then we would share, like, well, BTS donated $1 million to Black Lives Matter. Emma Watson is an advocate for women's rights. So it got them really to open up and feel comfortable when they see celebrities and things that they know.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay, so for our last portion of our conversation today, we wanted to wrap up with talking about how important and accessible it is to collaborate through social media. Social media can be a really easy platform for us to develop our own team. So ever since I started my social media or social school counseling Instagram, I have seen so many incredible ideas, and I found accounts that I consider my go-to counselors because their ideas really resonated with me and are very similar to things that I like to do. So once you find your people, it really can then become a dialogue and a chance for you to message back and forth about upcoming awareness days or lesson ideas that you need. Everyone knows the role of a teacher, but not everyone knows our role as school counselors. And so I think increasing our presence on social media can also help to spread awareness about what we do, and that there are in fact elementary school counselors at all grade levels. So hopefully we can just take over the algorithm one day and pop up on everyone's Discover page or recommended page so that everyone in the world knows exactly what we do. I'm just kidding, but in all seriousness, I think social media can really be a catalyst and an extra avenue in place to help bring awareness to our profession as well. So here are a few ideas on ways that we can increase our presence on social media and really use it as a way to collaborate. So first and foremost, my number one tip, if you're going to walk away with anything today, I definitely recommend that you create your own professional school counseling account. That's not to say that you need to post all the time and be active, but I think what helps is that you have an account that is solely dedicated to school counseling content. So going back to the lovely algorithm, like I can't tell you the science behind it all, but when we think back to the algorithm, it can help to work in our favor if we have an account that solely focuses on our profession so that more and more ideas can come up on our page. So for example, on my personal Instagram account is flooded with like recommendations for French bulldogs, food recipes, and coffee. That's all that pops up on mine. But when I hop on over to my school counseling page, there's more and more school counselors that pop up, new ideas. And school counseling content can easily get lost in all the French bulldogs and iced coffee and food. So it's helpful that I can kind of bounce back and forth between both accounts and use one for work and one for my personal life. Another idea would be to get active on your school social media platform. So I know many sites have a Facebook page or a Twitter. I think this could be especially helpful for the middle school and probably the high school level for sure, since a lot of your students are on social media. So if your site has a Facebook page or a Twitter, you can post events like lunch bunches, your newsletters, class lessons for the month, maybe deadlines that you have going on in your counseling department, so your families can also see what you are up to. And if you're up for it, you can even use social media as a way to communicate or market your program to your students. So last year at the beginning of school closures, it was definitely a struggle for me, as maybe similar to some of you. It was a struggle for me to get in contact with a handful of students. They weren't coming to my drop-in office hours, they were coming to my lunch bunches, and I got so frustrated, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do it. Let me try it. I'm gonna meet the students where they're at, and I know that they're constantly on TikTok, so I was like, fine, I'll do it. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's going to be pretty embarrassing, but I'll do it. So I ended up posting a TikTok that day, thanking the students who came to my lunch bunch that at the time I called What's Up Wednesdays. And then I thanked the students that came there and invited students to come join us next week. So here's
Aren't you the guy who tried to hurt me with the word goodbye? Though it took some time to survive you, I'm better on the other.
I just want to put a disclaimer. It took me so long to learn that. And that is an example as a popular dance. Like that is a trending dance that was on TikTok at the time. And what ended up happening when I posted it and I shared it with teachers to share with their students, I had students comment, what's the Zoom? Like, what time is it? They tried direct messaging me on there. And from there, I was able to just email them and communicate them the information. Even though I had thought I had put it in all places possible, the one place that they ended up responding to was when they saw it through a TikTok. My principal and assistant principal at that time even jumped on board. He had posted a TikTok dance that he told me he worked so hard to learn the entire weekend. And it was like the exciting news at school the next day. So we built up the suspense and we told students, Mr. Flaherty made a TikTok and everyone wanted to see it. Our teachers were going to show it to school, at school on Zoom the next day. And then we ended up having students that we hadn't seen log in. And even it had been just a couple students, like knowing that they had come on just to see that was so worth it. So we took the idea and we completely ran with it. So there's that video.
Gotta take the time to cut them off, I need her. I know how to make the girl go crazy when you treat her like you're number one, baby.
I always look back at that and I always just see the concentration on his face because he just tells me how hard he worked on that. And it ended up working out really well. And that, again, none of this is totally necessary, but it's just an idea. One thing to keep in mind is to just be mindful of maintaining boundaries on different apps. So I never follow students. I never directly private message them, even if it's content or a question that's related to school. I just use my email or I use Canvas inbox as a way to comment them. I really just use social media as a way to share and market my program and to post videos. So it's another platform students can get information from. So your district might have a specific protocol in regards to using social media. So just make sure you check in with that before you decide to delve into this if you decide to do so. And then lastly, at the bottom here, Twitter specifically is another great platform for you to learn about the latest events or free webinars that are being offered. And that is something that might be worth exploring as well. Now, if you're going to walk away with anything, at least know you can rely on social media to give you a good laugh if you ever need it. I feel like I got inspired to make that TikTok because I feel like that's what a lot of this has been. Just trying to find different ways to get our students engaged, especially when you don't see them logging on and you finally see them log on and you can keep them there. It's just so worth it. And in all seriousness, I wanted to share this quote to kind of sum up the idea of using social media in our profession that says, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. And while there definitely is a negative stigma that can be associated with using social media in our professional practice, I think it's important to recognize that the world of school counseling we're living in is none like we've ever seen before. And that may mean we will need to try things we've never thought we'd have to do. But with that being said, I challenge you to just go at your own pace, do only what you feel comfortable with, but also lean into that discomfort and know that the platform of social media, while it does have its drawbacks, it can really provide a space for us to collaborate with others, hear new ideas, and really bring awareness to our profession. And most importantly, show our students that as silly as these TikTok dances or as weird as we think the lingo that they use is, that it matters and that they matter.
All right, well, this brings it to the end of our presentation. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. We hope you were able to walk away with some valuable information and ideas. If there's any materials that you saw or flyers that you'd like, please feel free to reach out to us. There's our email, or you can follow us on Instagram, and we post a lot of things on there that we've been doing, and feel free to follow us. And we'd be more than happy to continue the conversation as well. So we can take any questions for the remainder of the time.
Thank you, Nicole and Andrea. And yes, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat and we will make sure that they get asked. And also we have a survey that we'd love for all of you to complete. It's really short and it offers an opportunity to provide some great feedback to our presenters where you can share the love with some positive messages. So again, I always learn something from both of you. And like I said, follow them on Instagram. That's where I really got to see all the TikTok videos that were happening and seeing Nicole's humor come out. She did some amazing dances. So I know that was a lot of hard work, but kids love that. And you're connecting with them at the level that they are at. And so thank you both so much. I'm not seeing, I do have a question. How long did it take for you to start using social media in your school counseling program?
Do you want to take that, Andrea? Or do you want me to take that?
Well, I guess I'm still a noob with my social media. I started out like this after I saw Nicole. So I'm not nearly as much, keeping up with posting content as Nicole is. So I actually just started out, I think maybe this year or last year. So I'm still in the beginning phases. So not too long. Yeah, somebody said, does that mean a newbie? Yes, a noob is like you're starting out fresh and things like that. Yeah. And go ahead, Nicole, you could share about yours.
Yeah, I would say, I think I saw Hillary Ramirez in here, and I think she was one of the first accounts. So hi, Hillary, that I followed. And I really like the way that she kind of integrates social media into her school counseling program. I feel like it's kind of like an ongoing process, but when you start seeing just like small ways that you can kind of embed it, then the ideas just start to flow in. Like I said, the account, you see more accounts that come up, you see different ideas that people share. The inspiration kind of just flows in that way. But I would still say it's definitely a work in progress. But I think even just when a student knows that you know what like Among Us is, to them that's like, oh my gosh, she knows what Among Us is. She knows exactly what like we're into. So I think it's just, just starting with like yourself and trying to get familiar with what the students are into and then slowly embedding that into your program. But it's definitely a work in progress.
We have another question. Do you put the school you are at on your social media? I know the account means it is for work only, but what if you were to move positions? Would you start all over again or just keep it general so that it can move with you? Nicole, you could really answer this one.
That's a good question. I don't put the school that I'm at because my account that I have is solely for professionals. So I don't market my Instagram for that. My TikTok is more so like I still have students from my last district that follow me. don't connect with them on there, the information might not always be as relevant to them. But I think I like keeping it pretty general. But the information that I post can sometimes be more specific. So like if I'll post about like, oh, thanks for coming to lunch bunch, that's not always relevant to the students that I had before. So I keep my TikTok pretty general, but my Instagram is solely just for professional accounts so that I can try to explore different ideas. So hopefully that answers your question. And if it doesn't, you can definitely include a follow-up.
All right, so I think that's it. Again, please, if you could fill out the survey. And one more time, thank you so much, Nicole and Andrea. I liked your point that we should help grow the school counseling network as large as the teaching community. Absolutely. We need to get ourselves out there and advocate for our positions and the important work that we do. So I appreciate that. So thank you again, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend, and please join us for upcoming workshops in our Spring Refresh series. The Red has posted a link in the chat. Please register, sign up, and we'll see you soon. Thank you all.
New Cupid. Time for a change. Down, do your dance, do your We got a brand new dance. Down, do your dance, do your dance. Down, do your dance, do your dance. Not that me down, do your dance, do your dance. Do that new. They say I'm a rapper, and I say no. They say what you ain't trying to do, somebody go. I just let the music come from my soul, so all of my people can stay on the floor. They got a brand new dance. Come on, you gotta move your muscle. Brand new dance. It's called a Cupid show. It don't matter if you're young or you're old. Here we go. We gonna show you how it goes. To the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left. Now kick, now kick, now kick, now kick. Now walk it by yourself. Now walk it